What's going on, everybody? Good late morning. I mean, we already know. We already know what the big news of the day is for the Seattle Seahawks. Came down at 9 a.m. this morning on the West Coast. So we're not going to see anything today more significant than what happened this morning. So the big news of the offseason is already upon us. I don't think that anything that we do from here on out is going to be as significant as moving on from your offensive coordinator. We're not moving off of McDonald. I certainly don't think we're moving off of John Schneider. So the big swing has been made. And of course, as I've already said, I support the decision. I've already made a video earlier today talking about the actual announcement. But before we move on, and we got plenty of stuff we got to get to today, we got to get to our weekly Monday segments. We got to get to, probably not until tomorrow, but we will very quickly get to replacement offensive coordinator candidates that I would consider. But before we do that, I want to make one last video about Ryan Grubb. And I'm going to do the best that I can to explain why I believe this was the right move, because I'm seeing a couple different things from Seahawks fans. Number one, I'm seeing Seahawks fans that really don't like this decision. And number two, I'm seeing Seahawks fans that don't understand the perspective of the people who like this decision. I've seen many people, myself included, be accused of not allowing things to develop over time, not giving people a fair chance, demanding immediate gratification, and basically moving too quickly. And I want to talk about that a little bit here because that's simply not true. I was actually somebody who, throughout Shane Waldron's entire tenure, was more or less fine with Shane Waldron. And even as recently as last year, I thought there was some credence to the idea of keeping Shane Waldron when we transitioned from Pete Carroll to Mike McDonald. I was somebody who absolutely thought that Shane Waldron was deserving of more opportunities to show that he could do. I was somebody who stuck with Ken Norton for a couple of years after it was pretty clear that he didn't have the chops to be a great defensive coordinator in this league. I am that guy who is willing to let things play out in the long term, but this was different. And I want to talk about why, just one last opportunity to explain how I got to this point. So, when evaluating Ryan Grubb, a lot of Seahawks fans blame the team, blame the players. They say, what can Ryan Grubb do with these players? Now, some of them blame Geno Smith, which I think is silly. I'm not really going to get into that in this video because I've gotten into that enough already. Some people blame the receivers, which, look, our receivers are not as good as we thought they were, but they're not a weakness, right? There are plenty of teams out there that would like to have our receivers. They blame the offensive line, which, yeah, okay. Let's talk about that for a second here. The offensive line is bad. And the offensive line is a big reason why Ryan Grubb is fired right now. But here's the thing we have to ask ourselves. The goal is not to be good as an OC. The goal is to maximize what you have. And no one is denying that Ryan Grubb, if you gave him this offense with a good offensive line, would be good. But would he maximize? I think the answer is very clearly no. And that is why I support this decision. If I believed that Ryan Grubb would be able to produce, like, let's say you replaced the Seattle Seahawks offensive line with not even an elite offensive line, let's say a good offensive line, maybe like 12th or 13th best in the league. He'd probably be able to get the offense up to like the 9th or 10th best in the league. But I think there are other offensive coordinators out there who, given those circumstances, would be able to get it up to top 5. they'd maximize. And these other OCs, I think, could maximize what we have here in a way that Ryan Grubb could not. And the reason why I say that is because it's not just the results. Yes, the results are bad. I want to emphasize something here. The Seattle Seahawks offense this year was objectively worse at their job this year than all 3 years of Shane Waldron. That includes 2021, when he had a quarterback that had a busted thumb for about half the season. And that includes 2023, when he had an offensive line that was about as bad as the current offensive line. So I'm not really hearing the blame the players excuse, because everybody in the Seahawks fandom, pretty much 99% of people, were thrilled when we moved off of Waldron. So what I'm trying to say is keep the same energy, but let's keep going here for a second. So let's what I have here is the statistics page for all the top quarterbacks in the NFL, and I have it sorted by passing attempts. And let's understand something here. So Geno Smith, if I'm doing my math right, is 4th in passing attempts per game. Passing attempts. Let's just say passing attempts. And he's also 3rd in sacks taken. He dropped back to pass 578 times, plus 50 times, plus a handful of times more on plays where he scrambled for rushing yards on a play that was supposed to be a pass. I don't know what those exact numbers are. I don't have the scramble count in front of me. But according to my math, if you combine passing attempts with number of sacks taken, the only quarterbacks in the NFL that had more dropbacks than Geno Smith were Joe Burrow and Caleb Williams. And Geno Smith missed a half. Now, maybe Patrick Mahomes would have beaten him out if Patrick Mahomes played in the last game, so, you can quibble back and forth on that a little bit, but it would have been very close. So, Geno Smith has the 3rd most dropbacks of any quarterback in football. Not Joe Burrow, not Patrick Mahomes, not Josh Allen, not one of the best quarterbacks in the league, not the best of the best. According to some of you guys, he's not even mediocre, but, again, I'm not hearing that. I'm not here to debate that. I've debated that plenty. I'm tired of that discussion. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the amount of weight that this offense put on Geno Smith's shoulders to perform, to carry this offense, was unheard of. And again, Geno Smith, look, I've done the numbers, I've looked at the stats, I've watched all these games. In my mind, he is pretty clearly one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league, but he's not in the top 5. Not even really all that close. So why are you putting that kind of weight on a quarterback that is not one of the very, very best in the game? So that's just the surface level here. But how is he deploying those attempts? And keep in mind, yes, this team couldn't run block for a good chunk of the season. Guess what? They couldn't pass block either. So at a certain point, what's the difference? So we got this. We have an untoward amount placed on the shoulders of a quarterback that is not one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. The only 2 that dropped back more were Joe Burrow, who is one of those guys, who is a top 3 quarterback in this league, and was on a team with a terrible defense that forced him to throw a lot anyway. And then you had Caleb Williams, who had way too much on his shoulders because his team was terrible and they had to pass a lot because they were always behind. Geno Smith didn't have either of those things going on, right? Like, the Seahawks defense on the whole this year was flawed, but it was above average. So, not just that. I want to go back to this tweet because this is so important. This is so important with everything that I just said. Here's this tweet from Robert Mays. This is before the Bears game, but the numbers have not changed radically. The Seahawks in 2024, at this point, after 15 games, ranked 29th in running back carries, which goes hand in hand with this, of course, but 31st in play action rate. 31st in play action. So you have Geno Smith dropping back more than almost any other quarterback, and you are second to last in play action rate. You notice how yesterday when we played the Rams, all they did was play action with Jimmy Garoppolo? And you saw how easy that made life for him? Yeah, we didn't do that. Almost no play action in this offense. 32nd in quick pressures allowed. The worst team in the league at allowing quick pressures. First in shotgun rate. And as Robert Mays says, the entire offense is Geno operating on shotgun dropbacks with a bottom 3 OL. How often did we make life easy for Geno Smith? How often did we give him easy completions? Watch the Packers with Jordan Love. Look how easy they make things for him most of the time. Look how many easy throws he gets throughout a game, where it's just wide open in the flat, where he just turns around, gets the ball, throws it, ball's out, wide open, over and over and over again. And then watch a Seahawks game, over and over and over again. Geno Smith has to fit the ball into tight windows. Player barely even open, not even open at all, arguably. So that is why Ryan Grubb is gone. That is why Ryan Grubb has failed. He has made life as hard as possible for his quarterback. And that is why I wanted him gone. That is why he has failed. That is why we are here right now. So it's not just the results. The results can be blamed on the players that he has to work with to an extent. Not completely. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not just results, it's process.